Hello and welcome to Talking Points. I'm Kay Erickson with the League of Women Voters of South Tonka, and today we're going to talk about voting. Voters is part of our name because League grew out of the movement that fought for women's right to vote. Since 1920, the League has been educating the public about voting and about candidates and issues. We have an election coming up November 8th, so today we're going to talk about voting with Minnesota's Secretary of State, Steve Simon. He has many duties as Secretary of State, but one of his most important jobs is organizing elections in Minnesota. We're honored to have him here to talk about the basics of voting, how to register, how to find your polling place, and more. So let's get started with the first question. Who can vote and how do you register?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on this program, and I want to thank the League for all of its work nationally and in Minnesota on behalf of all voters. So in terms of who can vote, the rules are set forth in the Minnesota Constitution. To vote in Minnesota, you have to be at least 18 years old on the day of the election. You have to be a citizen of the United States. You have to have been a resident of Minnesota for 20 days, and you can't currently be serving a felony sentence. Those are the rules, and if anyone meets those criteria, they can vote.
What do you have to do in order to vote?
Well, you have to be registered to vote. And to register before the election, it's never been easier. You can go, if you have internet access, you can go online now and you can register to vote at mnvotes.org. That's mnvotes.org. And to register to vote, it's pretty simple. All you need, if you do it online, is you need the last 4 digits of your Social Security number or your driver's license number. That's it. And you can register very quickly and very simply. Now, Minnesota, fortunately, is in the position of being one of the few states that has same-day or election day registration, which means, unlike other states where you have to have some cutoff before the election, after which you can't actually register or vote, in Minnesota, you can roll out of bed the day of the election. You can go to your polling place and you can register right then and there and vote in one fell swoop. So have no fear. If you're not registered before the election, you can register the day of.
Now, if you don't have access to a computer and still want to pre-register, how do you do that?
Well, there you can fill out the paper form. It's the same as you see online, and you can get that form at most city and county offices, and you just fill out the form right there and provide that very same information.
Now, there's a deadline for pre-registering, isn't it? People have to have it done by a certain time.
Yeah, you have to be pre-registered a couple weeks before the general election, but again, you can still register on the day of the election, and that's very, very important because Minnesota is one of only 11 states that has that. We've had it for 40 years. It's very, very popular because people forget sometimes, or they move and they have to re-register. Have no fear. You can show up the day of the election and everything's going to be okay.
You mentioned re-registering. Who has to re-register? You mentioned if you move.
Right. And that's the primary reason that people re-register. If they move to a new address, you simply have to get a new registration, but you can do that either on the day of the election, you can go online, or you can go to a city and county office and you can fill out that form.
Now, isn't there a requirement that you have to have voted in the last several elections in order to maintain your registration? So if you haven't voted for a period of time, you need to...
And that's a good point. Even though by far the most common reason that people have to re-register is moving, the other reason is if your registration has basically lapsed. And it lapses if you go more than 2 elections without voting, then you're taken off the voting rolls, and sometimes people do that for whatever reason, and then you just have to re-register even if you haven't moved. But again, you can either do that online, you can do that the old-fashioned way with paper at a government office, or you could just do it on the day of the election.
Now, how do you find out, if you have a question about whether you're registered or not, how do you find out?
Right. Well, there are a couple ways. First, you can go to that website, mnvotes.org. That's mnvotes.org. Or if you don't have internet access, you can go to that city or county office, or you can just, without having to go, you can just call them up. Okay. And you can call up either your county election official or your city election official and just ask whether your registration is up to date.
Now, what if you're a college student? You live at home, but you live at college. So where do you register to vote, or how do you go about that?
Always a question that we get, and basically it comes down to this: you should register and vote where you consider home to be, and you just have to make a choice. So if you consider where you grew up or the house that you had immediately lived in during high school to still be home, then you should vote there and you should register there. And you can do so online or in person or on the day of the election. If you consider where you live on campus or near campus to be home, then you can do that there. And interestingly, and I say this for students who maybe are either, well, who are maybe new to Minnesota or moving to Minnesota, you can vote in Minnesota and vote on campus even if you're not an in-state resident for tuition purposes. They're two totally different standards. So if you're a Minnesota resident for 20 days, even if you're not paying in-state tuition, and you consider that campus or that new area where you're living home, you can register from and vote from that place.
What if you're in the military?
If you're in the military, it's quite easy to vote, or it ought to be. You can, and assuming that you're in the military and you're deployed elsewhere outside of Minnesota, you can vote absentee from your Minnesota address.
Okay.
And there again, not only can that person in the military take advantage of the procedures that I mentioned of registering online and so forth, but that person can also have their ballot sent to them by fax or email. They can't send it back that way yet. We're pushing for that.
Okay.
But they can have their ballot if they're military or overseas voter. And by the way, not just military, it could be a business person or a student studying abroad or a diplomat. Anyone who's overseas, that person can have their ballot sent to them by email or fax.
Oh, okay. Now, what if you're in a nursing home? How do they register or?
Right. Well, what typically happens all over Minnesota is for people in nursing homes or assisted living facilities, county and sometimes city election officials will typically about 20 days before the election go physically to that place and help people to get registered, and if need be, assist them with what they need in voting. Not counseling or coaching them how to vote, of course, you can't do that, but in terms of the mechanics of voting, helping them with that as well.
Let's talk about polling places. How do people know where to vote?
Right, and you know, it's a great question. Some people just know because it's always been at the particular school or junior high school or a church. But if there's any doubt whatsoever, they can go to mnvotes.org, that same website, and find out by just simply typing in their address where they vote. And if they don't have internet access, they can just call a city or county and ask by giving their address and find out where their polling place is. And sometimes, as you know, they change.
One of the questions leagues has gotten in the past is people who want to know if they can vote near where they work or some other place that's more convenient.
Right.
Can you talk about that?
Well, we aren't there yet in Minnesota. There's some states that have experimented with so-called voting centers. We don't have that yet in Minnesota, but I'm intrigued by that possibility. No, you can't do that. You have to vote at the polling place assigned to your home, where your home is, not where your work is and not where some other place is. It's all a home-based, residency-based system.
Okay. Let's talk about Election Day. Somebody knows where they're going to vote and they go into the polls. What are they going to see? Are they going to see election judges and
That's right.
what do they need to do?
Well, first of all, they're going to go into a place that is accessible to all, and that's very important under state law. For those who have disabilities, there are everything from the measurements to the parking situation is all set forth, and so those polling places are very carefully chosen, so it's accessible to all people, regardless of ability or disability. But when the voter goes in there, they're going to see a number of different election judges, all with a different task. You're going to see someone who typically welcomes you. You're going to see a separate station over to the side for those who need to register or re-register. You're going to see an election judge who is in charge of the roster, which is a fancy word for the list of all the voters. And you're to check in there, give your name, and then sign your name on the roster beside your name, if you're already pre-registered. And then you're going to be basically handed a ticket or a piece of paper, which you give to another election judge down the line, and that election judge will then hand you your ballot. And you go over to the voting station, and you can fill out that ballot. And when you're done, you hand it to another election judge who will help you to feed it to into the actual ballot counter where it will be recorded and kept.
Wonderful. Polls are open from
7 a.m. to 8 p.m., 13 hours.
Now, isn't there a right to have time off from work
There
to
is.
vote?
And one thing I'm very proud of is we finally got clarification in state law last year in 2015 for the first time ever that clarified once and for all that for all regularly scheduled elections in Minnesota, whether it's a primary or a general election, if it's a regularly scheduled election, not a special election, but a regularly scheduled election, every Minnesotan gets time off to work. That's very important.
Okay. Can you talk about the absentee balloting and the new rules around absentee balloting.
Yes, absolutely. So some of your viewers may remember that the old rule before a couple years ago was that if you wanted to vote absentee, you had to sign an oath under penalty of perjury promising that you were either very sick or you were going to be out of town that day. Well, the legislature decided, and I was in the legislature at the time, to change that and to get rid of the excuse or the need to sort of justify that. So now no one needs to make such a showing or sign such an oath. Any one of us now can vote absentee, can vote from our couch, can vote from our kitchen table for any reason or no reason. We don't have to give a reason anymore. So if anyone wants to vote absentee 46 days before the election, that's September 23rd this year, starting September 23rd, anyone in Minnesota can vote from their home. All you have to do is go to mnvotes.org, that same website, order the absentee ballot. It'll come to you at home. You have to have a witness sign it, of course, once you're done. And then you just send it on in, no fuss, no muss. You can even track it, just like you do a mail or FedEx or overnight delivery package. You can even track it online to determine whether it's arrived and whether it's been tallied yet. For those who don't wish to have it come to their home, you can vote in person absentee for that same 46-day period by going to your county or city election office. And you don't need an excuse. You don't need to provide an explanation. You can just do it because you want to do it.
And you can do it that same day. You don't. I did it for the primary.
Right.
You could just walk in and get the absentee ballot, apply
right.
for it, and vote right there, and you're done.
That's right. You can do it in one
It's a
fell
big
swoop.
improvement.
Yep.
What if someone makes a mistake on their ballot?
Good question, and it happens from time to time. If you make a mistake on the ballot for any reason, my advice is don't try to correct it. Don't cross things out or make a marking or start drawing arrows or anything. Just go to one of the election judges, say that you made a mistake, and they will destroy that ballot right there and give you a fresh new ballot.
So you have a chance to do it over.
Yeah, you have a chance to do it over.
Do you have to vote for every office on the ballot?
No, you can vote for however many offices you want on the ballot. The ballot is perfectly valid. Whether you vote for one contest, all the contests, it doesn't matter.
Okay, and how would you find out about who the candidates are on your ballot?
Well, one of the ways to do that, and I get that question a lot because people are inundated with so much information and they may know a lot about the very top races like President of the United States, but not about some of the local races. So one of the features that we have on that website, mnvotes.org, is a place where you can go to a feature called My Ballot, which does a couple things. First, it tells you what's going to be on your ballot. It kind of produces a sample ballot. So if you live in Minnetonka Beach, or you live in Wayzata, or you live in Excelsior, or wherever it is, you can see what the contests are on your ballot. But more than that, it has links to the websites of the candidates who are on the ballot, if they have a website. So you can find things about the candidates in their own words right there in one fell swoop.
Well, it sounds like voting is absolutely easier than ever before, which is wonderful. I'd like to thank you for being here today. It's wonderful to have in-person opportunities to ask those questions. If you would like more information about voting and have more questions, there's a wealth of information on the website MN Votes. You can also link to the League's website, lwvsouthtonka.org, and find out more about voting. Thank you for being here today. We really appreciate your taking the time to do this.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, and thank you again for the League's great work.
Thank you. When we come back, we'll talk about a brand new website developed by the League of Women Voters of Minnesota. Its purpose is to look at the past, present, and future of voting rights.
Here's what's coming up on First Responder TV. We'll tour the Hennepin County Medical Center's state-of-the-art hyperbaric chamber. The Excelsior Fire District shares our rich history as we celebrate our 125th year on making a difference. We'll give you an update on scams that have been targeting citizens in the lake area. Loretto and Maple Plain volunteer firefighters take part in an auto extrication training exercise on Safety Source.
First Responder TV airs daily on LMCC's Channel 12.
Welcome back to Talking Points. I'm Kay Erickson with the League of Women Voters of South Tonka. And in this segment of the program, we're going to be talking about a website that the State League of Women Voters has launched called Your Vote, Your Voice. It's focused on voting rights, past, present, and future. I'm going to introduce Liz Hahn, who's been involved with the website. She's the State League's community organizer, and Charlie Bartlett is the State League's community outreach and equity inclusion intern.
Thanks for having us, Kay.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to look at the videos you've got and see what's on this website. So let's show the video.
Your vote, your voice.
Your vote, your voice.
Your vote, your voice.
Well, it's powerful when young people get together to talk about issues because they have new ideas and new perspectives on how things should go.
As a young person, I feel that we are the future as well as now. We have a lot to contribute.
I actually got involved when I was 12, and the first organization I started working with was my Liberian community, talking about immigration and fighting for the right to live here, and so that other kids my age wouldn't have to one day wake up and fear that they are going to get taken away from a place that they've called home for so many years.
You can make a difference. It doesn't, matter how old you are. And there are people in this world that are more than eager to help you, kind of have a voice in the first place. For women in my family, it's always been an importance to vote. They always tell the story of my great-grandmother. In the 1930s, Puerto Rico said, okay, women can vote. And her mother was very traditional, was just like, no, that's a men's job, you can't vote. And she jumped onto someone's truck, and she kept jumping on different trucks to different towns just so her mother couldn't keep track of where she was, and she voted for the first time.
I think it's very important for us to learn the history of voting rights because it's great to know where we get our rights from, and I think it's great to learn from the past in order to see what we can do now in the present.
When we grow up, we're going to be most directly affected by the changes that are being made now because we're going to have to live through them. All of the older generations, they're going to be long gone when the stuff that we make today is starting to affect us.
And it's important to have the right elected officials that can help change or shift the way society is.
If you're able to vote, it's really important for you to register to vote because you're not just voting for yourself, but you're also voting for people who are your age that wish they had the opportunity to vote, because no matter what, we live here and everything that happens here affects us.
Explore this website, see what it can offer for you. There's a lot of really cool aspects about the history where you can learn and know where to go forward and see what the past has done and what you can do to affect the present and the future.
Even if you're not able to vote yet, you can still get involved.
When people speak out and join together and get into groups and communities that feel the same way they do, they can really get their voice heard.
Oh, that was fun. Where did you find the young people in this video?
Yeah, so we have 12 partner organizations, and those partners came to the project over a year ago. And part of the reason for including partners was to have more voices coming through on the website. And since this website is for high school students, it's important that high schoolers that it's not just geared toward them, but high schoolers are like on the website and have a space to be on the website. And so 2 of the partner organizations, Neighborhoods Organizing for Change and Asian American Organizing Project, organizers and interns from those organizations and myself planned a civic engagement day for young people. And a lot of the planning was done by those groups for sure. And we wanted young people to, like I said, have a space on the website, but to not just pick some young people and put them in front of a camera, but to actually make it an impactful day. So there were facilitated conversations about political, social movements and representation, and specifically barriers and movements geared or affecting young people. And then 6 or 7 of those young people wanted to be on camera and wanted to be a part of this website. And so those students also had a chance to view the website and give some of their feedback to, and so that's how we found the students.
So they were really involved in the design of the website in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, they had input, and they were so articulate. They were wonderful.
Yeah,
they were really good.
Those students were really great.
When you go to the website, Charlie, what are you going to find when you go to the website, how does one navigate through it, and what do you see on the website?
Sure, so when you kind of get on this website, you've got the past, the present, and the future sections.
Okay.
If you go here, for instance, it's nicely divided, the past, and then from here, it's kind of divvied up into communities, issues, videos, and timelines. You have a drop-down menu, and we have historical narratives from various communities within the United States.
Can you stop on one? Just pick one and
Absolutely.
see what we've got.
So right here we have just sort of a kind of general background information, and then we have these, it's divided into time periods and events. So from there, you can read more.
Okay.
And we have, I think what's really cool about this too is that we have on every page a section devoted to what was going on in Minnesota around that time in relation to voting rights for that specific community. Each of these pages has more information. And what I thought was really cool was that we focused a lot on organizing and resistance and sort of the grassroots movements that were happening at that time, less so on kind of the mainstream things that are taught, and we tried to highlight some important people that students might not have heard of.
So in this website, they can find out about how different groups organize to make change happen.
Yeah.
And hopefully inspire them to do the same thing in their communities, in a sense.
Well, right. What's really interesting too is that what we've tried to do is kind of tie what happened in the past, what's going on in the present, in terms of organizing and civic engagement, and really make those connections, which personally I don't know was really done in high school when I was going there. It was sort of civics, and then there was history, but you never really get an idea of how interwoven they are, how the movements of the past are really pretty much all of the movements that are happening right now for change, and the groups that are getting out there and making their voices heard are really founded in the change that happened in the past, and the movements and the grassroots organizing. So that's definitely something that we try to push through on the website, was how those things are so connected.
So this is a resource you're hoping that teachers will use, and how are you getting that message out?
Well, we've done some presenting at teacher workshops. We'll be at the History Center next week, and as you know, there are a number of teachers, retired teachers in the league, so we're using those connections to reach out to teachers, let them know about this resource. And something really exciting that we're working on right now is developing a toolkit for teachers, so that
that's a good idea.
so it's busy and it's difficult to just be given a website and expected to just put this in your classroom. So we're trying to help teachers so that it's very clear what's here, and also going back to how important it is to have young people involved in this website. We'd really love to have student-generated content, and we would love to work with teachers to develop assignments that students can see their work and their thoughts and reflections published on a website. And that can be anywhere from small assignments. We have been researching organizers and people, so really developing those bios more. Anywhere from that to reflecting on a historical piece to a larger research project. And that's something we're really excited about, something that you can expect to see evolving in the next few months is the future section of the website. We're working with our web developer to change the structures of that part of the website, because the future hasn't happened yet, and
So it's a work in progress, a true work in progress.
So the future is really focused. It needs to be dynamic, and it needs to be a space where things are changing and things are where people can be a part of that within this platform. And so that's something where I think we'll see the most student voices coming through.
So students and teachers could work on that piece and keep adding to the website then.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to working directly with teachers to make that easy and fun.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I were in high school, I would be excited about the idea of having something I did on a website.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a fun way to have their thoughts. I mean, young people are, they're our future, and and I mean, young people drive movements, and we're seeing that right now. We've seen it in the past.
Oh, it's an exciting website, especially since it's going to keep going and it's not static.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing what it's like in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you both for being here. We appreciate you taking the time to talk about the website. I encourage everybody to go to the site and click on lwvmn.org and go to Vote Your Voice and check it out for yourself. I've tried it. It's really fun to go through and bring up the different groups and see what's there. So thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We talked a lot about voting today, but not necessarily about why to vote. Sometimes people wonder if it's important to go to the polls, why bother to stand in line? They wonder even if their vote counts. I think it helps to remember that the officials we elect affect our lives every day. They make decisions that touch our lives. And you as a citizen have the power and the right to decide who's going to be making those decisions for you. If you care about the schools your kids go to, if you care about the water you drink or the state of the roads you drive on, if you care about student debt and how loans are structured, the kind of neighborhood you live in, how much money you take home in your paycheck, those are all decided by people that are elected by you. So vote. If you're wondering if your single vote counts, just ask any of the candidates who have been involved in close races how much every single vote meant to them. And we've had some really tight elections in Minnesota. If the right to vote isn't important, why did it take so long for women and minorities to get the right to vote? People push back against that over and over and over again. Your vote really is your voice. It's one of the most powerful ways you can make your voice heard in our political process. You can find out more about voting and the League of Women Voters of South Tonka by going to our website, lwvsouthtonka.org. We serve the cities of Deep Haven, Excelsior, Greenwood, Tonka Bay, Shorewood, and Woodland. We're nonpartisan, so we don't support or oppose political parties or candidates. We welcome both men and women in our organization, so we hope you join us. I'd like to thank the Lake Minnetonka Communications Commission for presenting this program. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you at the polls on November 8th. Thank you.